we also have an equity session. And those are offered every single summit, and they kind of build on each other. So if you've been to our leadership before, awesome. We're going to continue to build on what we've worked on in the past. If you haven't, no worries. Come on in, and we hope that you will take away some wonderful tools that you can use back at your school sites. I do want to do a quick shameless plug for our equity session, and that is offered, and you all received the Coaching for Equity book, and that session focuses on looking at the ideas that are presented in this book. But I also wanted to continue to offer you the opportunity to participate in book clubs with this book. And so if that's something that interests you, we have book clubs that are facilitated by our TLN team. We have schools that are doing their own book clubs, and we have just groups that are organizing. Some schools that are in proximity to each other are organizing their own book clubs. So if that's something that interests you and you'd like to learn more about, please let us know. All right, let's dive into our leadership. I am here with my awesome leadership team, Tammy Gaudet, Courtney Grant, Jen Sears, Heather Summers, and then we have Liz Torres. So let's just talk a little bit about today's goals. And today we're going to focus very much on that culture of learning, because we know how important that is. And some of your schools have amazing learning cultures, and others are working to improve that. And definitely that's been stressed this year by everything that's happening. So what we've seen are the schools that have those positive learning cultures are the ones that can handle that stress just a little bit better, especially given the COVID and the now coming hybrid, a little bit better than the other schools. So we're going to work on that and hopefully give you some tools to take back today to use at your school sites. Next slide. All right. Quick agenda today, even though we have an hour and we're going to jam pack it, so it should be, so buckle up for the ride, but we're doing a quick check-in. If you'd like to put in the chat how you're feeling right now, are you having a wonderful morning? I don't know if you've attended some earlier sessions, or if you're feeling tired, or if you're feeling stressed, you can drop a word in the chat and we can just take a quick temperature check of everyone out there. While you're doing that, I wanted to just step back and review just a little bit about what we've done in our leadership this year. And that's that 10 traits document that we've used. So I'll show you that in just a moment. Today, as I said, we're going to look at that learning culture, but specifically through the lens of risk-taking. So you're going to hear that word a lot today. You're going to hear about good risks. You're going to hear about bad risks, and you're going to hear about some beautiful risks. So we're going to explain that in just a moment. And once we do that, then we're going to go into some breakout sessions to give you an opportunity to practice a protocol that will help us. It's a possibility protocol. So hopefully it'll help us generate some ideas and maybe solve some problems. All right, next slide. So we have looked at these 10 traits of successful leaders all year long. And first of all, we looked at that importance of building community in our first session. We moved from there into empowering the teachers at our school with leadership skills. We looked at a video that month about a lollipop moment, which was pretty cool. Finally, we moved on in November, which seems like a long time ago, but we sort of switched gears and we went into we brought in our wellness team. And we did leading by example, because we know that if you practice wellness and show that to your staff and your teachers, they may also do the same thing. And we want to keep that mental well-being during these times. And today, as I said, we are going to look at how your school sites encourage risk-taking. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Courtney Grant, and let's get started.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here today. All morning we've been joking that we truly are living by and practicing our message today, because it has been almost like comedy of errors this morning, all the way from yesterday with internet out and everything you can imagine and everything you experience all the time too. So thank you for being here with us today. All right, so first, I'd like to start by reading you a quote from Elena Aguilar. "The rate of change in our world has never been faster, and the only way to navigate this change is to learn how to understand it and adapt. Successful adaptation comes from learning." Now, remarkably, Elena Aguilar wrote those words 5 years ago, long before she could have known exactly what they would mean in 2021. And they are so true for today. The rate of change has never been faster, and the only way to navigate it is to learn. So now, we aren't here in today's session to say anything like, if you do all of these things, the learning will be easy, because it won't. And we're today here to say instead, here are some things to try when it's hard, because we know it will be. And the way forward is to grow together and learn. And that's why we are talking about learning cultures today. All right, if I could have the next slide, please. Oh, and thanks, it's already there, actually, thank you. Elena Aguilar identifies 14 indicators of a learning culture, or online organization, or learning organization, as she calls it. And today we're going to focus on 3, because all of these have a common thread. They all support risk-taking. And never has there been a time when more risk-taking is needed to be a teacher. So the first indicator of a strong learning culture is an appreciation of difference. And that's defined as being able to have discussions that surface differences in ideas and being able to have healthy disagreements. And next slide, please. The second indicator of a strong learning culture is openness to ideas, openness to new ideas. And this is defined by staff that are encouraged to take risks and try new things, and they do. And if I could have the next slide. The third indicator is time for reflection. And this means that time is given to pause and thoughtfully reflect on process and learn from experiences together. So we'd like to start today with some time for your own reflection about the learning culture and the state of the learning culture at your school site. And Jen's gonna tell us more about that.
All right, so we would like to get your thoughts and have you start reflecting on this particular question. So in the chat, and we've already plopped the question in the chat as well as it on the screen, we want you to think about, how does your school value those appreciation of differences, the openness to new ideas, and that time for reflection? We'll give you a few minutes to think about, a few seconds to think about that. And if you would, please plop that information in the chat for us, kind of get an idea of where we're at. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Amy. We're going to be doing a lot of risk taking today. Definitely appreciating differences is very important. Wonderful. It's nice to hear some positive messages coming out of this, that we have a lot of schools that are appreciating those differences and are open to those new ideas and allowing that time for us to have reflection, because reflection is where we are having that learning. It is where we're, you know, having that time to really think about and do what we need to do to make ourselves a better leader ourselves. So thank you guys. Love these comments.
It was great to see so many celebrations in that chat. Thank you for that. So when creativity and risk-taking go hand in hand, amazing things can happen, right? Groundbreaking things can happen. So I want to tell you this morning a story about Henry Matisse, because there are so many parallels to his life and what teachers are going through right now. So imagine Paris in the early 1900s. It's the center of the art world. Henry Matisse is a master of his craft and a celebrated painter and sculptor who defies convention. But in the 1940s, he developed stomach cancer and is left bedridden, unable to even stand at his easel. But he's determined to find new tools and create, and he does. He even tries attaching a paintbrush to a long stick to paint from bed. He starts to cut shapes from paper and assemble them into collages, and he cuts and he recuts and he cuts again, sometimes for weeks, until the lines look just right. And from his bed in his chair, he creates one of his most influential bodies of work in his career, cut paper collages. And when he does this, he opens up the doors to a new medium. His work has influenced artists ever since. And now, if you think about it, teachers are going through the very same thing right now. They were masters of their craft before the pandemic, who suddenly found themselves without the tools or the methods that they knew and loved. So they picked up new tools and started creating, and some of it went well, and some of it didn't. And right now, their work is redefining what education can be. So creativity is way more than just creating art. Creativity is the ability to imagine the way that something could be that doesn't exist already. And that is just what our teachers are tasked with right now, imagining the way that something could be that doesn't currently exist. So part of what makes creativity so hard is it involves a lot of risk, because you're putting yourself out there, trying to do something without knowing how it might go over. And that is why creating a culture of learning where risk-taking is encouraged and celebrated is so important right now. And Tammy's going to talk about some different kinds of risk-taking.
So an author named Ronald, I'm going to mispronounce the last name, Bighetto, came up with 3 risks. We can have a good risk, a bad risk, or a beautiful risk. A good risk is one that we would normally take. It has the potential benefits outweigh the potential hazards. A lot of people feel good risks could be, they may feel like they might be incompetent. Other people might view them that way if they take a risk and fail. But a good risk is something as simple as, hey, I need help on this. Can you come and help me? Just that simple. A bad risk is the complete opposite, where the potential hazards outweigh the potential benefits. A good example is this is you're out camping, you're at your campsite, a hungry bear comes in, and you've decided instead of staying, straight, not moving, you decide, oh, I'm going to pick up this pole and I'm going to start poking the bear to tell it to go away. That is a bad risk. Now, Ronald comes up with this beautiful idea called beautiful risks. And with this one, these are the same as good risk, where the potential benefit outweighs the potential hazard. But it changes not just you, but others. It influences others. So in this risk, you might also feel like you have the issue like, oh, I'm going to fail, and more people are going to be aware of it. But with a beautiful risk, you can go ahead and take out and do things where it impacts others. So an example of a beautiful risk is where a student at the school site will go ahead, leaves the safety net of their social peer group. They go and stand next to someone who's being bullied, who's alone, who is being ridiculed, and they stand next to them and they support them. That is a beautiful risk. So I know Courtney had given you some examples of some beautiful risks. Other examples are Rosa Parks, who started helping with the, I'm going to say it, the Montgomery bus boycott. So that's one. The other one is termed Tank Man. It is actually an unnamed Chinese protester who stood in front of a column of tanks after the massacre at Tiananmen Square in China. So these are examples of some beautiful risks. But as teachers, we don't have to have some grand things that we do. Some beautiful risks can be something as simple as, let's look at some examples for good, bad, and beautiful. So a good one is You actually taking a step out and trying and willing to get feedback from your peers and have them observe your a lesson, or you videotape yourself and you have someone give you some feedback. That is a good risk. A bad risk is, hey, I found out about this new idea and you know what, it's just not going to work. I'm not going to try it. Or else I try it one time and say, it didn't work. The kids talked too much. And you go ahead and decide to quit it. That is a bad risk. A beautiful risk is you work on this instructional strategy. You keep working on it. You get it to where you think it's pretty good. It's probably not perfect, but it's pretty good. And then you go out on a national level and you go to a conference and you actually present on this strategy to others across the nation. That is a beautiful risk. So here, Ronald, I'm going to say his name wrong again, Beghetto, he actually has several ways that we can systematically take these beautiful risks. He is a professor of the University of Connecticut, and in it, he gives a legacy challenge to his students. And he asks 4 questions. The first question is what is the problem? What do you care about? Is it something worthwhile for you to invest your time? Then it might be a beautiful risk. The second question is, why is this a problem? Who does it impact? What would happen if we did nothing about this? The third question is, why is this a problem? Oh, I'm sorry. What are we going to do about it? I said it wrong. How are we going to address this? Who are we going to partner with? Remember, a beautiful risk, normally we don't do alone. We have a partner or other people with us taking this risk together. The fourth question is, what lasting contributions are going to make? How can I build systematically into these solutions? How can I ensure this work lives on even when I move on? So remember, there is always a risk with whatever we do. So my challenge to you is, how can you make a beautiful risk today?
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the science of risk-taking. We know in recent years, there's been a lot of work on the brain, looking at the neuroscience of how we learn and how we grow through mistakes, through activities that we do. And one of the things that when we looked at it, the research, it talked about in young brains that our decision-making areas in the brain have 80% excitatory cells. Like they're curious, they just want to learn, they want to go out there and try all different kinds of things. And you guys may have some teenagers at home, I do. This part of their brain seems to take over a lot more in terms of taking that risk and being out there. They have what we call 20% inhibitory cells, which are those ones that I call them the bad cop. They're like, they bring you down. They're like the conscience, you know, sort of like the angel and the devil on your shoulder. They're probably the angel reminding you need to do these other things. In adults, our brains are affected by experiences of failure, and more so than the rewards or the successes. And so that is what makes us as adults to have more of those more inhibitory cells, and we tend to be less risk adverse. Like we are wanting to be more risk adverse because we're afraid of taking those risks. We're afraid of looking like a failure. And one thing that we know from all of the brain and the all the neuro research is that risk takers are actually smarter. And because of that neuroscience, if we think about it, whenever something happens in our brain and we make a mistake, we have a synapse that fires. That synapse that fires leads to the building of those dendrites. The dendrites are what builds those superhighways or those pathways where things can happen really quickly and we're able to make decisions really quickly. We're able to act upon things. So risk takers are actually quite smarter than those that don't take risks. So it's really kind of interesting when you think about all the different neuroscience that we have that plays into effect with regard to what we do when we take a risk.
Okay. So this next piece we're going to give you some ideas of what you could do as one of the leaders in the school of how you could maybe encourage risk-taking there. So Denzel Washington did a speech called Failing Forward. So we're going to give you some ideas of how could you help your school fail forward. The first idea is my favorite failure. I love this idea. And so what it is this is the one where you get up in front, or a leader gets up in front and shares their own flops and failures. You know what? We all have them. Maybe it was something as simple as, I tried to get my presentation to work and then this happened, this happened, this happened. Oh my God. And I just got so overwhelmed, like I just shut down. But then you say, what came out of it? What happened from that? Could it have been something where it was as simple, it's not simple actually, where you were actually relieved of your position at a certain job. And that was a failure. It was devastating. It happened and you're like, how can I move on from this? So then you talk about what came out of it. It's not just that happened and it devastated my life, but something happened. Was it that you got another position somewhere else that was better? People were more open to listening and to working with you, that you were able to move up the ladder from that one job saying bye-bye, but then it opened up doors. That's where I always think of, there was a reason these failures happened. Now let's think about how we can go ahead and move forward with these failures. But my favorite failure doesn't just end with yourself. This is where you also ask others to take risk and start sharing their failures. And if they can go ahead and answer these questions, this will help them think about their own failures and what did they learn from them. So you can think of, what did you learn from the situation, but what did you learn from yourself? And why would you coin this your favorite failure? Another activity that I really, really like is Failure Fridays. If you go ahead and Google Failure Fridays, people on Pinterest have like a lot of ideas. A lot of them have to do with activities that you could do with students. But I like to take those activities and tweak them with, I can work with groups in the staff, either grade level groups, my department, or even if I wanted to do vertical or horizontal discussions. These are ways that you could do that and open up that door to risk taking. The best one, there's actually two I really like on this one, is let's discuss or watch a video on a famous failure. Take the speech from J.K. Rowling, where she talks about how she failed. She was pretty much had on food stamps. She was the poorest of poor without being homeless. And she contemplated suicide. But she worked herself through that, and she had lessons learned to help her write Harry Potter and move forward. The other one I really liked, I call this a class builder because you can use it with the kids, but you can do the same with your peers, is take 3 golf balls and stack them up. But they have to be freestanding. Can you do it? And as a group, small group, you can work and try to figure it out. And most times we're going to fail. And this is a good way, a safe way for us to experience failure, but learn from it.
All right, we've got some other ideas for you, and they are shared within the resource document that you have. This is an idea about quick 5-minute meeting launchers. So those of you, you're in staff meetings, you might be in grade level collaboration meetings, you might be in department meetings. This is just 5 minutes out of your meeting time that you would spend to do a little bit of risk taking. And these activities have varying degrees of vulnerability, and it's an opportunity for teachers, educators to connect and to build trust about their own experiences, personalities, and values. And as you can see, there are varying degrees. We have our no risk, our inviting risk, and our encouraging risk. And just as Tammy had pointed out some of her favorites, I have to say one of the ones that I think is really cute on the no risk is that if I were a kitchen utensil, which one would I be and why? Not very much risk in that, but you're thinking, why would I be a fork? Would a fork be a good thing? Is that the one that we use most often? It might be most useful in terms of things. So it's a very low potential of risk for you to be out there to get folks to know a little bit more about your personality, your experience, and those values that you have. There's also ones that we have encouraging risk, and those could be like, again, as you've built that trust, as you've worked with your teachers and your principals, anybody at your building, and you're thinking about a student that could have challenged you. And maybe what have you learned from them? What are you taking back from that experience? Those are a little bit more vulnerable for you in thinking about it, but it does improve that practice. It does improve your ability to want to get out there and really work for the best interest of all of our students. Also, right there on the very bottom of that, we're going to go into our next one, which is about the best and worst of scorecard. And Tammy, if you go ahead and flip the slide for me. So this one is just a way to celebrate and embrace. See, I'm embracing my risk taking. Could be my favorite flop too. These are just some ideas that you could celebrate that risk taking within the classroom, and celebrate even like failures within the classroom. And we all know that we have good decisions, we have bad decisions. And it's important that we learn from that experience. And so this is a way to kind of celebrate those positive aspects that you have, that you're taking that risk and trying something out new, and that you're working on that change. And so those are some of just the questions that you can do with your staff. And I shared the actual scorecard with you. This was an activity that was done at one of the schools where I was an instructional coach at. And we did this as a gallery walk. And I'm thinking that this could also be some kind of in a virtual sense that you could put up this information, you know, maybe like on a commitment to try. And they're fairly easy to talk about. And what we did is we just went around and we sort of did a gallery walk, and we looked at everybody's, let's say, you know, best teaching strategy. And we took that back and put it on an exit slip. And it might have been something that we were going to try out. It might have been something that we wanted to go see. It might have been a question that we had about it. It could have been anything positive that we felt that came out of it. And also in the same token, we talked about what's the worst lesson that we've ever taught, and what did we learn from it? Because we know those mistakes, those risk taking, those are good things to be talking about, and they help us grow and they help us move on into better and bigger things. So just another idea for you guys to do that. All right, so in this next one, since I was already talking about my favorite flop, we're going to try something with you. And this is going to be a waterfall chat. So I'm going to tell you, I know you're already thinking about that favorite flop, that terrible thing that happened during remote learning instruction. In just a second, we're going to identify our favorite flops. We're going to take a little bit of a risk. Okay, we're going to identify one of our favorite flops during remote instruction, and we're going to plop it into the chat when I say go on the waterfall chat. Don't go yet. What we're going to do after that is, once all of our responses come flooding in, we want you to identify with one that might have come in and respond to the person in the chat that you can relate with that particular faux pas. Let's say you didn't get, I was thinking of one before I came in, but what if you didn't get like the PowerPoint up and the dog was barking or something in the back? So if you can identify it and you're like, yeah, that happened to me, you know, maybe you do like one of those emojis that's like, oh my gosh, you know, that happened. That could be something that you're going to respond to within the chat once everything goes in the review. So, all right, I know I've been talking for a few minutes. Hopefully you guys have been thinking about your favorite flop during remote instruction. I'm going to say we're going to go in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Go. Yep, had the puppy get into the garbage during the meeting. So if this is something that has happened to you, find that person that responded in the chat and say, yes, I feel ya. It's happened. It is real. The struggle is real. Not muting yourself, definitely. I've done that several times. Love seeing all these. Let's celebrate it, embrace it. It is what it is. I'm gonna have to go back up and look at Valerie's. Was that the one that was the peeing in the pants? I love that one. Thank you guys for taking that risk with us and just getting out there and trying it. This is awesome. Helps us learn a little bit more about our group, and it also helps with building that trust, that community that is we so need at this time with everything else that's going on. So love it, love it. All right.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing those. Some of those were really hilarious. And my dog is also a meeting crasher, so I was glad to see that one in there. Thank you. Alrighty. So the next part of this session, we want to share a protocol with you so that we can try it out together today. And it's called the Possibility Protocol. And if you're familiar at all with the consultancy protocol or critical friends, then this aspect or this protocol might feel familiar to you. So the Possibility Protocol is a tool you can use with your staff or even with students to structure a discussion around something that's challenging and needs a creative solution. So we aren't going through this protocol today so that we can come up with all the answers or solve everything today. We're going through this protocol today so that you can see how it goes and use it as a tool if you so choose with your staff when the time is right. Okay, so here's the way that it works. There are two parts to this protocol. And the first part is, the two parts can be used separately or together. Part one starts with a presenter sharing a challenge that they're facing. Then their colleagues or thought partners suggest as many possible solutions to that, and they're all framed as what if? What if you tried this? What if you did this? What if this happened? The presenter listens and thinks without responding while the group gets all their ideas out. And then the presenter considers everything that was shared and identifies one or two that seem the most promising. And then in part two, you begin with that proposed solution to a problem. And it could be the one that you just generated in part one, or this could be a totally separate thing. You begin with that, and the facilitator asks all participants to imagine that you used that solution to a problem and it failed spectacularly. Then participants are asked to individually write down, if it failed spectacularly, what might have caused it? And the group goes through all the reasons for possible failure. And for each reason they think, well, what if we did this to prevent that? What if we did this? And generate solutions that would sort of be proactive so that that wouldn't end up happening. So that's the way the protocol works today. And typically you might have somebody come in with their own problem, or you might have a school-wide problem that you're trying to address, or solution or challenge you're trying to address. But today we're going to start you with one. So we're going to start all the groups with the same problem. And our problem that we're going to be working on together today is this. The teachers at my site are maxed out just from remote learning, and adding hybrid learning feels completely overwhelming. How can I help my staff navigate the upcoming changes and help them feel supported during this time? All right, that's going to be our challenge we solve with this protocol in breakout groups. You all have this protocol. If you opened up that resource document, this protocol is in that resource document. You might want to reference that during this, and it's there for you. We will have someone there helping to facilitate though, so we'll walk you through it. Okay, with that, I think Tammy's going to help get us in breakout rooms.
Okay, so I think I have it right. I'm opening the rooms, and I've given you all 20 minutes in those rooms. So head off, and you will have a facilitator joining you soon. Did you all have access to the breakout rooms, Patrick and Veronica? Or did I boo-boo somewhere? Oh. All right, Heather, I'm going to move to my breakout room. If you need me to come back to deal with something, just let me know, okay?
Nope, I'm good.
I am good.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so thank you all. I hope you had some wonderful conversations. I know that we did in our chat room. We did not solve this problem, I will tell you that right now, but we definitely, I learned a lot, and I thank you for sharing that, and I know we have a long way to go. But what I'd like to do now, because we don't have a whole lot of time left, we wanted to get you as much information during this particular session as we could, some tools that you could use in your classrooms. We'd like you to respond in the chat again to this question. If you encourage your teachers to take more risks, and we have this year. I mean, there's no way we could say this was not a year of risk taking. What might those classrooms look like? So go ahead and just take up maybe 30 seconds to think about that, and then maybe pop in the chat some thoughts you had. So can I call a couple people out, because your comments are amazing. Deidre, can you talk about new learning and engaging students in different ways? Do you want to expand on that? If you don't want to, it's fine.
Sure, no, it's okay. So I see that with all of this happening and the online learning, we've had some teachers in the past that are so, this is how we're doing them. They've been doing the same things for so many years. We're seeing, and I'm like, and also within conversation with my students, they're enjoying learning, which is a great thing to hear, even though we are online. And they're even saying like, you know, so-and-so tried this new, and, you know, we were really engaged because we're thinking out of the box now, I think. And it's just, I'm seeing all of these creative ways. I'm like, I have the opportunity to go in and observe classrooms, and I'm seeing all these creative ways that teachers are just trying to get the kids in class. There's a couple teachers that do a wheel of names for students that are on time or they've made it through the whole class, and it's just kind of a surprise. And then, you know, for their incentives, here goes like a simple Amazon Prime delivery to that student. So the students are definitely also thinking of different ways how to navigate online. And so just seeing those differences happening and occurring, and I'm hoping that it continues for some of those teachers that were just kind of stuck in that rut of this is how I'm teaching and not looking outside. So, you know, I'm like, I think it's been good. I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty flexible that way though. But seeing our veteran teachers opening up to new ways of teaching is awesome to see. So.
Oh, thank you. That was a great explanation. And I agree. If anything good came of this, maybe it's expanding how we think about our classrooms. There's another shameless plug. There is an equity-based grading session at the very end of the day today. And that is it's going to maybe blow your minds if you've even thought about it. Maybe you have thought about it, but it's a different way of grading. So attend that if you guys are feeling really open and creative. And I think we are at 10:30 now. So our session is over. Documents are available for you. We so appreciate all of your input. You guys are amazing, and we love hearing your voices. Thank you.